Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you guys are watching this live stream. Welcome back to the Chicago Conservative live stream edition. Today we have a very special guest. Today we got Alderman Raymond Lopez of the 15th Ward here in Chicago, Illinois. Welcome to the show, Mr. Lopez. How are you doing?
Rashawn, it's great to be with you and your viewers and watchers today. Looking forward to a very exciting conversation.
Yes, sir. The people have been looking forward to this a lot. I put the word out, I believe, like a couple days ago when you agreed to do the interview. So I appreciate you doing this with me, Mr. Lopez. I really do.
No, my
And
pleasure.
I know the people are going to also appreciate it as well. So let's just get started because I know you're a very busy guy. So tell the people about yourself. What inspired you to become an alderman of the 15th Ward?
Well, as you said, Alderman of the 15th Ward. I've been representing this district, this ward, under three different maps ever since I was first elected Democratic committeeman. And right now, just to give your viewers some perspective, my ward represents Canaryville, Back of the Yards, Brighton Park, Gage Park, Chicago Lawn, and West Englewood. So I've got several different neighborhoods all connected. Um,
Mhm.
but I got my start going back around 2009, 2010 when I first decided to run for office. And I ran for office because at that time, I didn't like how my alderman was treating me. Actually, my aldermen and their staff and their ward super all were very disrespectful for a very simple request, a bulk
Mhm.
pickup, a garbage pickup. And I had learned early on in life the values of good political stewardship when I, at the age of 18, became a precinct captain straight out of high school under
Mhm.
the tutelage of Bill Lipinski and uh, Mike Zaleski on the southwest side by Midway Airport. So I learned early on that, you know, people that vote have influence over elected officials.
Mhm.
And that's a lesson that I think isn't necessarily resonating today in this world of social media. We think that having 10,000 followers somehow gives you power, but it's actually being able to mobilize 10,000 votes and
Mhm.
effectuate an election gives you power. So at that time, as I said, going back to the simple city service that I wanted, I
Mhm.
spent a year trying to convince my neighbors that somebody needed to run against this alderman, and then my neighbors finally said, "You're right, you do." So I, in 2011, ran against an incumbent black alderman in a supermajority black ward. It was the first time a Latino took an incumbent African American into a runoff, which I'm
Mhm.
very proud of because of the fact that I quite simply did what most people had stopped doing, walking the neighborhoods, knocking on doors, introducing myself. And I still never forget the look on so many West Englewood residents when little old me started walking around the neighborhood, knocking on
Yeah.
doors, saying hello to people, and I had the best security in the world that time. All my senior grandmas in the neighborhood who would watch me from one end of the block to the other to make sure no one messed with me because they knew I was simply just walking around by myself to say hi and introduce myself.
Mhm.
Um, didn't win, but kept on going. But what I learned and what still resonates with me is that you have to focus on city service, no matter how big and bad you think you may be, how many news shows you may be on, how many podcasts or YouTube interviews you may be doing.
Mhm.
You still you
Guilty as charged.
guilty as charged, but you still have to take care of the neighborhood. You still have to make sure that people, like this past week, my staff and I have been quite literally going about 10 hours a day since last Thursday to make sure that we are answering all the calls, putting in all the requests for the water in the basement, trying to connect people with services because we're not going to leave people hanging, especially in a time of need. That's why I ran. And I always remind my team that, you know, a simple garbage request gone wrong put me in office and it can just as easily take me out.
Yeah, it's always good to have people who actually care about the citizens, listening to the people, because if we don't have people, aldermen, because you guys are leaders, of the city. So we look to you guys for guidance, for leadership and things like that. And with Brandon Johnson being the executive leader of Chicago, he absolutely sucks. So we just thank you for always, speaking for the real Chicagoans, And that just leads me to my next question. What are your top three priorities while you're in office right now, and what specific steps will you take to achieve them?
Well, for
Oh,
me,
you gotta hold on before you answer that. You got a super chat as well, and it says "I love Ray." I put that up there. Thanks for the $2 super chat, guys. All right,
awesome. Thank you.
now,
And
yeah,
that wasn't from me or from my mom, so you're safe. I know that.
I got you, Ray, man. Hey, we keep doing this, man. I'll give you a cut for sure.
So top three, I think first and foremost, it's always going to be public safety. I represent some of the most historic neighborhoods in the city of Chicago, but I also represent the neighborhoods that most people see in the headlines after a bad weekend, whether it's back
Mhm.
at the yards, West Englewood, or Chicago Lawn for that matter, or Brighton Park. We have to focus on keeping people safe. No matter what neighborhood you live in, you deserve to be in a safe community. I don't care what color you are, I don't care what religion you are. Everyone deserves to be able to wake up, go to work, go to school, sit on their porch, live their life in a safe community. And oftentimes we've seen where so many of my colleagues and other elected officials forget that safety is at the heart of everything that we're trying to do.
For sure.
Two, you know, I'm in this business because of city services. You know, being able to ensure that people get the services that their tax dollars pay for is critical, especially in those communities that I listed and beyond. So I make it a point to spend a lot of my energy and a lot of my focus on making sure that we are delivering on those city services, that we are making sure that the departments are responsive to the needs of the residents and listening to what our people are asking for in a timely fashion, as well as
Mhm.
trying to find ways to make it more efficient and smarter. You know, oftentimes Chicago government has just been a reactionary, monolithic beast that needs to be a, needs to evolve to be proactive. A lot of the issues that we see in our
Absolutely.
neighborhoods, if we were just proactively trimming trees, if we were proactively replacing light bulbs, if we were proactively replacing garbage carts, a majority of the amount of money we spend addressing these issues would decrease simply because we are doing it on a preventative basis as opposed to an emergency basis. So that's
For sure.
the two of the main issues that I'm dealing with. The third one is more personal for me because I represent multiple communities of varying economic and demographic backgrounds.
Hmm.
And it's easy for politicians to try to pit people against each other. We see that a lot with this administration, where rather
Absolutely.
than bring people together to focus on what unites us, they're constantly trying to divide us. And as somebody who was elected in a supermajority African American ward and now represents, 20% Caucasian, 25% African American, 50% Latino or and Asian and what have you, I can't pit people against each other because
And I
everyone's under my roof.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that, and I know he's not lying when it comes to that African American stat, because actually, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dennis's alderman.
Yes.
So everybody know who Dennis is, and Dennis White, he's like a dad to me. I'm not gonna lie to you. Well, I call him my godfather, but Dennis
He's
White,
a good
2A
dude.
activist, and yeah, he really loves his city just like me, you and
Yep.
me, and he actually referred us to each other when it comes to the interview. So, guys, this interview actually would not happen without Mr. Dennis. So, Mr. Dennis in the chat, guys. But
And he
yeah,
knows
you
how to
can
text me.
continue.
And he knows how to text me. I'm sure I'll be getting a message when he
Yeah,
sees
yeah,
it.
man, and Mr. Lopez always responding, man. Like that's what this is what the Chicago people need. You think you can just text majority of these aldermen and they're gonna text you back and like, all right, I'll handle it. No, like, come on, Mr. Ray is the real deal. But all
And
right,
by the
man.
way, not only do I have Dennis White, but you all probably also seen a public comment, uh, Mama D, Evangeline Wynubian. She's also a
Mhm.
proud 15th Ward resident from West Englewood as well. So
Yeah, for sure, man. I
my
actually think
folks are definitely holding it down at City Hall for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure. I think you're my brother's alderman too. I'm gonna have to look into that. But let's go to the next question. So I've done some digging and I've did a little research and things like that, and I saw that you ran for mayor against Lori Lightfoot. So can you tell the viewers the experience about that and how did that play out?
So in 2022, I announced that I was going to run for mayor. When
Mhm.
before Lori Lightfoot announced she was running for re-election, clearly Lori and I did not get along. For your viewers' memory, I'm the one who told her to go fuck off on a.
Say it, Ray. Don't be scared to say it on the
Well, I'll tell you a story.
show.
Talking.
Yo.
I'm generally a very calm, demeanored person, but we were in a Zoom call during the 2020 civil unrest. And as many of you will remember, we had a lot of issues, particularly in Latino neighborhoods, where gang members, at the behest of Lori Lightfoot, were being encouraged to quote unquote protect their neighborhoods. And
For sure.
oftentimes we're targeting their black neighbors simply because they didn't know that they belonged in the neighborhood just as much as the other guys.
Right, because
And
Lori Lightfoot clearly doesn't know that, black people are 3 times more likely to be attacked by other black people. So she might have wanted to look at that stat, but yeah.
well, when we brought that to their attention at the time, her and I believe her name was Jessica Lee, somebody with Arnie Duncan's universe, came up with this brainchild of letting gangbangers defend their neighborhoods. And I said, okay, well, gangbangers don't check IDs, just so you know. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen here. And Lori got very snotty and snooty as she would. And, I just had it because I'd seen what was going on. Actually, we had a young African American man walking home on Mr. White's block at 3 a.m. who was home
Wow.
from work and was shot because of these policies by Lori Lightfoot. And she accused me of just preening and trying to, make shit up like I was bullshitting her. And I
Right.
remember my husband told me that morning, don't take any shit from her. So then all of a
Mm.
sudden he just hears like this mass argument after I told her, well, with all due respect, Madam Mayor, go fuck yourself.
Right. Twat, right.
And that was the F bomb heard around the world. It became every police officer's favorite ringtone. Everyone loved that clip. And then, of course, I went to go visit my grandmother, God bless her, rest her soul, who didn't know that she was listening. And I didn't realize this clip had
Oh, don't Granny heard it? Oh Lord,
and
God,
she heard it.
Wash your mouth with some soap.
And she said, where did you learn to talk like that? And I said, from you. And yeah, that was the end of that. So, but yes.
I'm surprised you're still alive with that comment, man. But yeah, for sure. So it sounded like it was pretty rough, but
So
I would just like
yeah,
to.
so running for mayor, it was an experience. I
Mm,
loved every minute of it, but running for mayor is a very expensive thing to do. You need at least 10 million minimum just to maintain an active, functional operation if you're really trying to do it. Now we know there are plenty of folks out there who throw their name in the hat just to get publicity or X, Y,
yeah,
and Z.
cloud and stuff like that.
Um,
Yeah.
but I love my city, and I knew my city needed better. I still have pictures when Brandon was a no-name commissioner, and he and I were sitting at a debate together, and I'm just like, "Who are you?" Just whatever. But what we realized early on, even before the filing period, was that if you had people like Paul Vallis, had people like myself, had people like Willie Wilson in the race, who are more center right on the political spectrum, that we were
Mhm.
going to detract from each other and create a lane for Lori Lightfoot to squeak by. And the last thing any of us wanted was Lori Lightfoot making it into the runoff.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would have been
So,
terrible.
so
And a lot of people feel, but what's crazy is, and I'm not defending this lady at all, but you know, well, when it comes to Rahm Emanuel, I believe he had what 1,600 deaths when it comes to homicides as mayor of Chicago. Lori Lightfoot, I believe she was at I would say 1,000 and I would say 90, and I think Brandon Johnson is like 5 lower than her. So that's pretty bad because they're one-time mayors. Ron was a 2-term mayor. So when you look at the numbers, like the deaths are doubling with these progressive mayors. And if I just want to add to your point, I just believe that Lori Lightfoot, she only won because, well, because she was a lesbian black woman. Let's just be honest, which there isn't a problem with that. But my thing is this: like, if the policies are good, nobody cares what you are or what your what
Right.
you do with your partner, anything like that. Nobody cares about that stuff. So she just had bad policy. But then when she lost, I believe was to Brandon Johnson, or when she lost the primary, or whatever you want to call it, she blamed it on her being a lesbian black woman. And I feel like that is just what keeps the black community down all the time when it comes to the race baiting and the always trying to play like we're victim, but really it's just that our policies are just really, really bad. So
There's a certain level of accountability that every elected official needs to have. And good politicians know how to say, I'm sorry, I messed up. Or take responsibility and say, hey, I tried something, it didn't work out. Let's try something else. FDR was famous for that. Try something, works, if it great. If not, scrap it, start all over. But what I think Chicagoans as a whole, to your point, have no patience for is stop making excuses for your failures and blaming everything on the race card. Because
right.
when it doesn't apply, no one wants to hear it, because you're actually diminishing when individuals are the true victims of racism or sexism or what have you. To your point, Lori Lightfoot touted her black lesbian queerness as her strength. And then when she lost because of her bad policies, she turned around and made that her weakness. Like, you're exactly right. But to be fair, she didn't win because she was a black lesbian. She won because Ed Burke got indicted. Lori Lightfoot's campaign was 3 days away from folding when Ed got indicted. If he had not gotten,
I never knew that. I never knew that.
Oh yeah, she was about to close tents because she got no traction. And then when Ed was indicted, all the other contenders were associated with him, either because of his longstanding presence in politics, and they all fumbled in their response to how they knew him, rather than just saying, yes, we've worked with him, and he's alderman for 50 years, of course. You had Susana Mendoza, who said, I never knew him, even though she got married in his living room. Tony Preckwinkle, who said, I've never dealt with him, even though we sat with him on the Democratic Party for 20 years. Everyone was coming up with excuses as opposed to just saying, yeah, I know him, so what? And I think what Chicago doesn't like are people who turn on their friends. And that's why they just went with Lori, because nobody really wanted to give Preckwinkle a shot.
Okay, yeah. And speaking of Brandon Johnson and Lori Lightfoot, so when he first got elected, basically replacing Lori Lightfoot, what were your recent thoughts when Brandon Johnson got elected? And are they the same as, before, or did they change?
Oh, they've changed all right.
So can you tell us about that?
Absolutely, they've changed. Look, when Brandon Johnson was elected, he and I had a conversation, and I'm not going to get too far in the particulars, but what I will say is this. I gave him a warning, and I said, this is your moment, okay? And to be fair, I gave the same kind of talk with Lori. But I told Brandon, after seeing what happened with Lori, I said, this is your moment. And you do not have to worry about people like me getting in your way. Your friends are going to be your undoing. And by friends, I meant like the socialists, the teachers, everybody that's going to use him and try to steal his mayoralship for their own personal agendas. Me, I'm just going to hold your feet to the fire as I would anybody else. But they're going to use you. And as we've seen with Carlos and Byron and Rosanna and Andre and all the rest of them, left-wing leftinos, as I like to call them, they have completely put him in a very bad political spot. And yes, my opinion has changed, because I think he had the opportunity, as did Lori, to do good things, but they get lost in the pettiness. They get lost in the politics. And to be quite frankly, they've done shit for their own community, let alone the entire city of Chicago. And that's why their re-election chances evaporate, not because of race, but because they've been completely ineffective and inept in what they're doing.
Absolutely. I want to piggyback off what you said, but before that, we have a super chat by my girl, Nicole Patrice. $10. I appreciate that. She says, hi, Ray. I'm hoping you can run for mayor as a Republican, but I know that comes with its own problems. Also, are there any solutions you are working on for flooded homes in Gage Park / Midway? Do you want to respond to that?
Sure. I'll leave out the Republican for mayor for right now. But I will say this. The flooding, very bad issue. Make sure, my recommendation to all your viewers and all your friends, let everybody know they need to let the city of Chicago know if you had water in the basement. Put pressure on your congressman, whether it's Chuy Garcia, Danny Davis, or
Danny
whoever else.
Davis, right?
He just
Please,
announced he's retiring, but before he heads for the door, tell him to pick up the phone and call FEMA and put some money in the bank so that we can address the issues on the southwest side in a very better way than how they addressed Austin 2 years ago when they allowed the whole community to flood and didn't do shit for them for 2 years.
right? Because Pisshead Johnson wants to basically spend money on illegals and put us in a $1.2 billion deficit because he wants to spend over $700 million on illegal migrants. Which brings me to my next question. So, why do you think that Brandon Johnson support illegal migrants so much? Like, what is his deal? Free EBT, free health care. What's his problem? Is he stupid?
Well, that's two questions in one. But yes, I will say this. Look, I think it's a problem for the entire Democratic Party, right? Because we've seen since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris welcomed tens of millions of individuals to manipulate asylum to gain entrance to our country, there's been a very concerted effort by Democratic Party officials to welcome individuals, namely from failed socialist states like Venezuela, into our country. I believe that they are trying to fortify the dependent class within the United States. Because what we've seen time and time again is individuals, particularly second and third generation African Americans and Latinos, are wanting to be self-sufficient. They're wanting to be entrepreneurs. They're wanting to be free of government intrusion, which is the exact opposite of what someone who comes from a socialist country wants. They want government programs, government handouts, government, to take care of everything. And that's what they've imported to replace all of the free modern thinkers like those that watch this show and yourselves who want a country that you can flourish through your own independence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of Chicago believes that aldermen like you, Brett, Anthony Beale, and other aldermen of sort are really trying to fight for Chicago. But Brandon Johnson, it just appears that he just prioritized migrants while Chicago struggle and starve on the streets. And we're talking veterans here, we're talking single mothers, people who want to get a job but can't get a job. I believe we talked about that earlier before. We have minors out here and we have the youth out here that want to work, like they genuinely do want to work, but there are no jobs for them to work. Now, granted, yeah, you have to, the youth actually have to work, but there has to be other programs as well. I would even accept things like you said earlier, like One Summer Chicago and things like that. That stuff works because that's one less body on the street.
Well, and to be fair, part of the benefit, if you will, in the mayor embracing 59,000 migrant asylum seekers and having to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on them is that you get to bolster up all of your friendly not-for-profits who in turn will do your political bidding once election time comes. Right. And don't think that they're not taking their 15% cut off the top to pad their own pockets before they put $1 into any resource. But you are correct, and we talked about this before, which is, if you want to focus on our communities, focus on our issues in our neighborhoods, yeah, we could break the violence if you're willing to break that generational cycle by providing something else in its place. When you have 80% unemployment for Black males 18 to 24, don't be surprised when they're all standing out on the street, hanging out, doing nothing. They're going to gravitate to the guy making money. They're going to try to emulate, if not be a part of that operation. And at the end of the day, they're either going to be shot or be arrested. If you want to break that, then you have to give them an opportunity to earn money, tire themselves out with no idle hands, and be able to provide for themselves in a dignified way. The problem is, for as much lip service as the mayor and the socialists do about wanting to get to the root causes, they never want to get to the root pricing, which is you need to pay the bill to put people to work. I've seen, even going through programs that we created with Mayor Rahm Emanuel, like Ready and others, where if you put people to work, you can break this cycle. People do want to break this cycle because there's really only about 10% of of the problem population out there is committed to that lifestyle. The other 95%, they're just there because they don't have shit to do. So if you give them something to do, if you give them some hope, then you could break that cycle, make them self-sufficient, make them earn a paycheck, make them pay taxes. You can start that cycle moving in the right manner. The problem is you have a lazy city government that doesn't want to do the work to put people to work. Something as simple as expanding a summer employment into a training apprentice program for all our departments through our unions is something that can work. But the mayor doesn't want to do it, even though he's the most labor-friendly mayor in America. You could look at all of the contracts that we have out. Take water, for example. We spend $1.2 billion a year on water contracts throughout the 6 districts in the city of Chicago. Do you know how many requirements they have for putting people to work within those districts? 6, every single one of them. You know how many waivers the administration gets so that the companies don't have to do them? 6. So you can't complain about putting people to work when you have the mayor signing off on people not having to get hired and leaving everyone from Indiana to come in and take the money that our taxpayers are putting out there. You know, we oftentimes hear from the descendants of slaves crowd that we need to work on reparations. Well, you know what? Put a descendants of slaves hiring.
I know that's right. Help wanted, goddammit. I love that. I love that attitude when it comes to the leaderships and the leaders of any Democratic, Republicans, and anywhere in our country. We need leaders that preach capitalism. Because you got a lot of socialist communists in our cities, sadly. And I'm glad that you said that we have to start at the core. And I also believe that it's also a home issue. It starts in the home and things like that, especially when it comes to the Black community. But it doesn't help when you have, pinheads like Brandon Johnson, who is preaching the race baiting and things like that, especially in the Black churches and things like that. And, it's not just Brandon Johnson. It's like Al Sharpton and, all of these Black race hustlers and race baiters. And I'm telling you as a Black person, so don't be offended or anything like when I say this, but they use Black trauma against, their own people in order for them to get elected. This is what they do, and he targets, Black people like in the Black churches and things like that. So I just want your opinion. I know it's not like a actual answer to this, but why do you think Brandon Johnson targets Black churches and people who are, like trauma filled? Like, what do you think he does that for?
Because he doesn't want to be the parent that tells you Santa Claus doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Brandon Johnson wants to continue the victimhood of the Black people. Because then if you have someone to blame that's not him, then the problems that are existing aren't his fault. The problem that he has right now is that
it's the white man. It's the white man. It's Trump.
To quote George Blakemore, he's got Black faces in high places.
Yes, sir.
You don't have the man to blame anymore. There's no white guys left to say it's their fault when you've put every person in charge.
There are none left.
Who's left that you can point and say, oh, that's the culprit of why I can't get anything done? Your mayor and your black man, Black children, Black wife. We all heard him say that 1,000 times. Your budget director is Black. Your transportation director is Black. Your head of the water department is Black. Your head of the police department is Black. Your head of procurement's Black. Head of special events is Black. What am I missing? What lever of power do you not possess that you cannot effectuate change for the Black community? So you have to now pivot and go back to the churches and say, oh, this is why I only hire Black people because we're so generous, or this is why I only do this for Black people because of X, Y, and Z. That might sound good in that moment, but the Black folks on the street in Englewood, in Auburn, Gresham, Chicago, Lawn, in Austin, in Lawndale, they're not buying that bullshit.
Right.
They damn thing. Look at Austin. You are the mayor from Austin, and you let your own neighborhood go flooded for 2 years and not help.
And I believe he lived there as well. Didn't he live in Austin too?
I mean, he lives there. So you
Right.
don't see that your neighbors are struggling. You can't take 5. You think anybody in the city of Chicago, myself included, would be upset if you said, you know what, I got to take care of my neighborhood. Okay, every other mayor did it. Go ahead, knock yourself out. We're not going to be mad at you for that. But it doesn't even register that he has to do that. So,
Exactly.
I
You
think
know,
it's an easy pivot, but I also think that black folks aren't falling for it like they would have in the past. And there's a very simple reason why. Because they've always heard there's not enough money in the budget to do anything to help black communities. We can't invest because, budget and this and that and bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And then lo and behold, 60,000 migrants show up and I've got $1.2 billion in a surplus fund just for them.
absolutely, man.
Imagine if we could have opened up every closed school with any part of that 1.2 billion and turned them all into community centers for those neighborhoods. Something that many residents have asked for and we're always told there's no money for. What other things could we have done in communities with that money that was apparently sitting around hidden that they never wanted to share with city council, but he found when it came time for them?
Absolutely. And I'm shout out to Mr. Blakemore. I'm glad that you referenced Mr. Blakemore. This just goes to show you that Ray Lopez actually listens to his constituents and the people there at City Hall, guys. So I appreciate that. And like you said, he would rather basically come out of his back pocket for some illegal migrants. And this angered the people of Chicago, especially people in the black community. Now, I'm not saying some of them are beggars. Let's just be honest. Some of them are just looking for free stuff. But the people who actually work, like I've seen veterans, like actual veterans who are black, that are getting $12 on their food stamps, $12, while there are illegal migrants out there getting well over $1,000+ for their food stamps, and that's on top of cash with the card as well. Like, what the hell is going on top of free healthcare?
Let's not forget that on 57th and Halsted, and forgive me if I'm wrong, in the 16th ward, we have the veterans home, the veterans living facility over there that I believe then Alderman Joanne Thompson built several years ago. Maybe 100 apartments for veterans, black veterans.
Mm.
You know how many we've built since in the community? None. You know how many beds we created?
That's
for
ridiculous.
Migrants under the one shelter system for the supposedly homeless migrants? 2,500 beds.
I was just going to say probably thousands. Yep.
Not to mention, we had the hotel in Hyde Park. We have the hotel that was converted in Scottsdale on Cicero Avenue in Derek Curtis's ward. We had the school in Jeanette Taylor's ward where they were always fighting and shooting and doing all that crazy stuff over there. Mm-hmm. We've spent millions, tens of millions to create for them, but couldn't put 2 pennies together to help veterans here.
And that's insane, man. And that just goes to show you how much this guy sucks. So clearly this sanctuary law was just very detrimental to Chicago. It just took too much out of us. We already was in a deficit, but now that this sanctuary law is passed and, the money that he's been funding these illegal migrants, it's just been, really hard for the people of Chicago. So the people of Chicago were wondering, would you get rid of the sanctuary law if you had the chance?
No, I would not. I would amend it, and I've offered to amend it numerous times because I believe that what was removed by Lori Lightfoot, the carve-outs that allow us to work with our federal partners when individuals who are non-citizens commit dangerous acts in our city, she took that out. I think that should absolutely go back in. Now, I wouldn't throw out the entire welcoming city ordinance because I think that we need to be helpful to all of our residents, regardless how they got here. That's not our job to figure out. It's right. The federal government's. They failed. And on a personal note, it'd be very hypocritical for someone like myself, whose great-grandfather came here without papers almost 100 years ago, to now turn around and kick everyone else trying to do the exact same thing. So I know there's lots of different views on that, but as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the city's delivery of service, you have people here who are hardworking, been here 20 years, waiting for a chance to become citizens. Federal government hasn't made it a possibility to give them a pathway. I'm not going to harm them because of the federal government's failures. However, if you choose to be an asshole while you're here, then you can get the fuck out.
I love that statement. And
That's a full stop on that one because
but it's
my friends,
real.
like so many,
It's real.
want to be a part of the United States. They love that flag behind me. Not like some of my colleagues who would just assume set it on fire, but they love this country. They want to build this country up. So why wouldn't you want people who want to do that? They can't help it that the federal government is so ass backwards. They don't know that, a front door is better than sneaking in through the back window.
Mm-hmm.
But until they get their crap straight, we have to deal with how people are now. And there are plenty of individuals here who are good, law-abiding, minding their own business, keeping their head down, just trying to build a life. I don't think we should hold them harmful for what the federal government's failures have been.
So, well, first, before I just piggyback on what you said, I just want to thank you for that answer. I really respect it, even though, a lot of people, and, like myself, I don't necessarily agree with everything that you said, but I can respect the fact that you're not being a hypocrite, because anybody could have just got you in a gotcha moment, and, you're on my show and you're like, oh, I wouldn't, support the sanctuary law, and then someone just pull it up and say, oh, but this dude has a grandfather who hasn't came here with documents and things like that. So I appreciate that honest answer, and we do need more Democrats who would be more, upfront when it comes to their views, so we can talk about it. There's nothing wrong with having a discussion about it, like what we're doing right now. And if I just want to add on that, Donald Trump isn't really going after the people who are just law-abiding citizens. He's going after the illegal migrants. He's going after MS-13, Tren de la Agua, the real, scum. If I call them scum, but he's going after the real bad people here in our country. They're bringing in fentanyl. Everybody knows that Mexico is the number one buyer of fentanyl, China being the number one producer of fentanyl. So we know who's China, who's giving, China all the money when it comes to fentanyl and things like that. So Trump is trying to stop this stuff. And, we just had an incident. Well, I'm sorry, there's just one point.
Go ahead.
We just had one incident here in Illinois due to an illegal migrant being here. And this lady by the name of Megan Bowles, she lost her life. An illegal migrant decapitated her and threw her in a barrel of bleach. And, they eventually found her. And her mother actually went up to the White House to speak to Trump and ask him, can you please investigate this? Because I really think something, has happened to my daughter. She could be dead. Please check into it. And he responded instantly. So this just goes to show you that, even though people might not like Donald Trump, he hears you and he will hear what you have to say and he will help you. He's not just this orange man bad guy. I'm not trying to, sound biased or anything, but that was a genuine moment for me. And now a bad person is off the street. A mother has justice for her child. And, I just think that's just the way it needs to be. People just need to be held accountable for their actions, no matter where they are illegal or not. If you're a criminal, you can be an American and a criminal. You need to be, in the lowest part under the jail cell, in my opinion, So
yep, absolutely.
And that just brings me to my next question. So when it comes to putting the Americans first, as far as the garbage men, the plumbers, the teachers in Chicago, CPS I believe they let off or fired over 1,400 teachers. So how do you feel about that? And a follow-up question would be why isn't Brandon Johnson speaking up about these layoffs? Because he is a teacher, he is still technically with the CTU. So why isn't he speaking up about that?
So if I may, I see a question popped up. So let me just answer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. We got a super chat. Patty Jackson, thanks for the $5, says, is there a way the city would drop the 2-year college degree requirement to become a police officer altogether? That would fill the
vacancies.
Vacancies. Okay, yeah, I can't see that.
So thank you for the question, Patty. I will tell you that the 2-year associate degree in criminal justice requirement is not holding back filling vacancies. The fact of the matter is that human resources has gotten 10 times as many applicants that qualify that are able to meet that requirement. The issues that we're having are twofold. One, human resources moves way too slow and does not fill these vacancies from start to finish for like 9 months. So imagine applying for a job, passing all the requirements, and then having to wait 9 months for an answer because because they're taking so long to process paperwork. That's what's holding us up. Two, the mayor's not filling these classes the way we used to. We would be able to do 100 cadets a month in a class. And right now we're doing about 12 because of the mayor's slowdown on filling these in order to save money. So that's where our issues are with
Wow.
to filling CPD requirements. Second, to your point about uh, Donald Trump, I want people to know that when you see the headlines of the wrong people getting taken by ICE, the grandmas, the worker next door, you can thank Mayor Johnson and all his allies, because when ICE goes looking for the criminal, they're knocking on doors, and whoever answers, that's who they're taking, especially if they are non-citizens. If we had cooperated with ICE when we have these people in custody, they would never go in the neighborhoods. But that's exactly what Brandon Johnson, Byron Cicho Lopez, and the rest of them yahoos wanted, because they want their teary-eyed moment. They want and force these scenes where they're holding arms and trying to stop ICE, as we saw a couple weeks ago, where, for the first time, Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez came out of hiding just so she could go protest at an ICE center. It's ridiculous. It's staged. It's performative. And if they really cared, they would allow for cooperation so that Tom Homan doesn't have to take everyone's grandmas and could just focus on the bad guys. You asked about CTU and the mayor. It's funny that the education mayor himself has led to the worst turnout at CPS in their history.
For sure.
How does the man who used to be a teacher, prides himself on being a union organizer, go deaf, dumb, and blind when they're all of a sudden $776 million in the hole laying off people? How is he not being held to that standard? Because I guarantee you, if that was Rahm Emanuel, CTU would be blasting Rahm Emanuel, Lori Lightfoot, Rich Daley, 5 ways from Sunday for letting this happen. Their guys in charge, Stacey Dates gone mute, Jackson Potter is off in Wrigley Field doing something, and all the teachers are left without a job. So ask yourself, where are their true loyalties? Because I think what Stacey and company really did was bullshit their membership into winning, saying, look, we got the contract we wanted. It's going to cost $500 million, or it's a $10 billion pay increase over 10 years. Keep us in office. Great job. She won overwhelmingly. And then the district turned around and said, well, we don't have the money for that. Now we got to start firing people. And she hasn't said a word. But her $270,000 salary is secure. So you get what you pay for and you vote for. And CTU is learning that lesson the hard way.
Yeah, and it's funny how every time when CTU is brought up, there's always money following it. Because just to piggyback up on what you just said, Brandon Johnson, it's a conflict of interest of him being with the CTU to begin with. And when he does retire from the CTU, he'll get a $5 million pension. Yep. So a lot of people are saying that this is kind of not legal. So why can Brandon Johnson continue to stay with the CTU while simultaneously being mayor of Chicago?
Well, I believe the mayor has resigned from his position within the CTU itself. He's still a teacher on leave, which you can do, but he's no longer part of the CTU organization, because both the Inspector General of CPS raised this issue when he was being sworn in, and then I filed a complaint with the City of Chicago's Inspector General saying he was in violation of the ethics ordinance, because you're right, it doesn't pass the smell test. You can't be a beneficiary to a contract and being the lead negotiator to the same contract.
For sure, yeah.
You can't have a realtor who sells and buys the same house.
Right.
But that's what he was trying to do. And I think that if I had not filed that complaint, he still would have been trying to push forward. But let's not forget how many CTU lackeys he plucked from the union and put in the administration. So, they've infested City Hall for their own purposes. But we have to remain vigilant and not be afraid to file complaints against him. I think I filed 4 or 5 Inspector General complaints against the mayor's administration since they started 2 years ago. That's like unprecedented for an alderman to do that. But I've had to do it because he keeps breaking the law. He keeps pushing and bending the rules. And if this were anybody else, they would be up in arms. But, they have a diminished moral license right now because they believe that since they're the good guys, they could break any rule, harm any person, and do whatever they want to do because they're the good guys in charge. Just think back when Carlos Ramirez Rosa put his hands on a senior citizen, Alderwoman Emma Mitz, trying to stop her from going in to vote against the sanctuary city or in support of the sanctuary city amendment that we put through. Literally grabbed her,
I
assaulted
remember
her.
that. Yeah.
The mayor's
Wow.
team, nothing to say about it. Well, he's just doing his job. It's not your job to put your hand on people. You touch my
Exactly.
grandma, I'll knock the shit out of you. I'm
Oh
surprised
God,
she.
man, you getting your ass whooped. Factual, way. See, that's what I'm saying, man. That's what the people love to hear, man. And the thing is, when a normal citizen do something like that, let's say they rough up somebody's grandma on the streets, they're going to jail.
Your ass is getting
Man,
first your ass is getting beat, and then you're going to jail.
yeah, right. You getting your ass whooped first, but then you're going to jail afterwards. Yeah, so good point. But the thing is, this is what the people want to see, and this is why a lot of people are just fed up with politicians getting away, especially in Chicago. Jesus Christ, they're so fed up with politicians and aldermen, and you got people that's Cook County and things like that. They get away with absolutely everything, but no one gets held accountable. Held accountable for anything. So you know, this is honestly why a lot of people want to see Brandon Johnson behind bars because let's just be honest, when it come to this sanctuary ordinance, a lot of people died, was assaulted, women were, I don't want to say the word, but and I kind of blame Brandon Johnson for that. And the fact that he doesn't want to work with ICE just really hurts the city even more because at the end of the day, we need ICE to help get like I said earlier, the garbage out of the streets because I call these people garbage. And that just leads me to my next question. So,
And there's 2,000 of them, by the way. Let's not forget that. When Donald Trump and Tom Homan took over in January, January is when Tom Homan came back and said there are 2,000 individuals who have been identified as threats to the community, to the city, and to the country. That means Joe Biden and them vetted 2,000 people and still let them come to the city of Chicago.
wow, due to that sanctuary law,
Well,
it's crazy. So, a lot of people know that violence, is a big problem in Chicago. So, just some statistics here: violence is the number one problem for over 65% of them, Chicagoans. So why has Brandon Johnson failed to take action against crime, to tackle crime and things like that? And why do he not want to work with ICE when it comes to, them having not a partnership, I wouldn't say, but just them working with CPD in order to get the bad people off the streets? Oh, can you hear me? Am I good? Oh shit. You still with me, Mr. Ray? Um, I think we lost them, guys. Um, guys, did I lose them? Oh man, I think he said they had a power surge in the office. Okay, we might have to wait for Alderman Ray Lopez to return, guys. I think he said he had a power outage because yeah, it is kind of thundering out here. But yeah, guys, we're throwing some hard balls at them. We're trying to get to the root cause of the real issues here in Chicago. We're trying to see if any aldermans are going to take any action. But hopefully, hold on, just let me see. Hmm. Sorry, guys, give me 1 second. 1 second, guys. Um, I'm trying to get him back in right now. Hold on, guys. We having some technical difficulties on Mr. Ray end. So, guys, I'm not sure if Ray Lopez got his connection back. So, I guess that's the end of the interview. But I'm not just going to leave you guys with that. I want to react to something here that I seen on my X account that I think you guys will find pretty interesting. So sorry for the connection, guys. It's very stormy and rainy today. But there was this video of this church, and I believe that they were talking about how they were praying to God that white people get out of positions of power in America or in the world. I'm not really sure, but I gotta definitely react to this with you guys because this is one of the most dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire lifetime, guys. So we gotta talk about it. Um, let's see here. Give me 1 second. I think this is it right here. Okay, it's only 38 seconds long, but it's like a fairly delusional crowd, guys. So, um, let's see. Now, this is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. The fact that these people are literally preying on white people's downfall is absolutely asinine, guys. So let's just roll this little short clip because I want to leave you guys off with something. Let's see. Okay. Now my connection want to act up. Wow. So I'm trying to play it, guys. I'm not sure what.
I came to.
Okay, there it is.
I came to tell white supremacists. I came to tell MAGA. I came to tell white privilege. We coming, we coming, we coming.
Y'all hear this beat, right?
We coming, we coming. God said, when you give me glory, I'm going to run them out of the State Department. If you give me glory, I'm going to run them out of Congress and run them out of Senate. If you give me glory, I'm going to run them off of your job.
So if you pray to God, then he will get rid of these white people out of Congress, these white devilish people out of Congress that are making your life so hard because they're so racist. Give me a break. Just another form. This is what Brandon Johnson do, guys. He go to churches like this and he preach all of that garbage for votes.
And run them off of your classroom. I need you to take your neighbor's hand and say, neighbor, we got to shout like we got faith.
Is this supposed to be a reference to F around and find out? This is the ghettoest thing. This dude have on a hoodie, by the way. But guys, yeah, they demons, dude. The hell is wrong with these folks? But guys, I guess that's the end of the interview, guys. Interview with Ray Lopez. You know, I guess his connection went bad, and we reacted to this race baiting church. And they're referencing F around and find out, like that's supposed to be appropriate for church, but I don't know. That's what I said. I'm done. These people are stupid as hell. The fact that they got to use God to push their narrative is crazy to me, man. So let me know what you guys think of the interview. I tried to do my best, guys. I had a few more questions, but my last question I was going to ask Ray Lopez before, his connection got bad was that, many of the fellow aldermen that he have believe that taxing the 1% is the way to lower taxes and things like that to basically pay back on the deficit that Chicago was in. But when the 1%ers and when the millionaires and all, whatever you want to call them, billionaires, millionaires, that once these people move out of the state and go to states like Indiana and things like that, then what will these people do as far as getting rid of the deficit? But hey, I'm pretty sure he would have gave me a good answer, guys. So that's the end of the video. I want to read out the top 10. I want to read out the top 10 fans for today. Thank you guys for the super chats. I really do appreciate that a lot. So let's read out the top fans, guys. So at number 1, we got Nicole Coco Patrice. Thank you so much, Nicole Coco. I really do appreciate that a lot. Thank you for the super chat as well. It never goes, Lord. Never go unappreciated, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry. But for number 2, we have Patty Jackson, and I believe that was another super chat. So I appreciate that as well. Thank you so much, Patty. We got Sup Bro 034 at number 3. So appreciate that, bro. Literally. At number 4, we got Miss Sharon. Appreciate that, Miss Sharon, for sticking into the chat. At 5, we have Spencer Moody. Thanks, Spencer, for being top 5. And at number 6, we have Raj News 8. Thanks, Raj. Appreciate that, my brother. At number 7, we have Puma. So thank you to Puma. At number 8, we have Mr. Brook. Thank you, Mr. Brook, man, for always tuning into the lives whenever you can, mister. And number 9, we got Miss Latanya. Thank you, Miss Latanya, for joining the chat. And at 10, we got Andre Cook, 1782. So those are the top 10. Thanks, Andre. Appreciate that. And we have more as well. Shout out MJ Stewart as well. I saw him in the chat too. But that's the end of the live, guys. I'll like you do a top 10 list. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's up to, you guys, whoever support, you'll end up in the top 10. So I appreciate that, Brooke. You made it, brother. You made it. But I love you guys. I appreciate all of you, the support and things like that. And tune into the next video, guys. I'm going to try to interview William J. Kelly next. And his feuds with Brandon Johnson are actually like hilarious. So we'll just try to get another interview with Ray Lopez as well. Okay, so yeah, appreciate that, guys. Tune in next time, and I'm out of here. Peace.